At the low 62, a blend of sun and clouds tomorrow, the high near 81. A shower or thunderstorm on Sunday with a high again 81. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
64 degrees at O'Hare. Next news 8:30. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan, and in for Amy this morning, John Cass, President, remarking upon his visits to El Paso and Dayton to meet with victims' families, law enforcement. President Trump saying this. Do we have? Can you cue up President Trump?
Okay.
We had an amazing day. As you know, we left Ohio, and the love, the respect for the office of the presidency, I wish you could have been in there to see it. I wish you could have been in there. And it was no different here. We went to the hospital, just came from the hospital. We were there a lot longer than we were anticipated to be. It was supposed to be just a fairly quick. We met with numerous people. We met with also the doctors, the nurses, the medical staff. They have done an incredible job. Both places, just incredible. And the enthusiasm, the love, the respect, and also the telling me, let's see if we can get something done. And Republicans want to do it, and Democrats want to do it. And by the way, here's a great hero. This man, the job he did, you all know who it is. Everybody, the whole world knows who you are now, right? So if you're a movie star, when you look, that'll be next. Who knows, right?
And so, of course, that didn't stop the Democrat candidates for president from continuing to prosecute their case that President Trump is a white supremacist and he's fanning the flames of racial hatred.
Yeah, but they're full of it.
Excuse me, former Vice President Joe Biden.
He's full of it, too.
He is full of truth.
We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts. So, folks, if you're interested, join me. I could use the help.
Is that one of those Freudian slips I've heard so much about, choosing truth over facts?
Every time he opens his mouth about race, I'm reminded of what he said to the NAACP just a few years ago
About Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney, the racist, going to put y'all back in chains.
Right.
With speaking in accents.
Well,
now, but still, I don't think the trip for Mr. Trump was that successful. You have Moocher, whatever his name is, on Chris Matthews, basically saying it was a disaster.
Well,
because it was.
Scaramucci certainly knows a disaster when he sees one. All he has to do is look in the mirror. But
it was about him. It was about that's what his criticism was. It was about the president, and that allowed his critics to pile onto him. And I have to say, I'm not unmindful of that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the point that President Trump is more narcissistic than I would otherwise like. However, his critics are going to say those things about him no matter what he says, right. No matter what he does. He could have been the guy at the Walmart, who was
private.
Yeah, who was at a local base, right, attached to a local military base, right. Who was running around saving children, getting children who were without their parents out of the way at that Walmart shooting. Trump could have actually been there, and they would still be calling him a white supremacist, still saying the same thing. But I do appreciate Joe Biden giving a hat tip to AOC, per her interview back with Anderson Cooper months back, where she said, we're morally correct, so we don't have to be factually accurate. Essentially what she said, and essentially what Joe Biden said. They're living their truth, and I think that's real special. But for more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined again. I talked to him last year. I also did an extended sit-down with him interview. You can get it at upstream-ideas.com. Maj Toure is a hip hop artist, and he's the founder of an organization called Black Guns Matter. And he's calling people out in no uncertain terms who would make black people less safe in predominantly black neighborhoods like the west and south sides of Chicago here. Maj, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Same here. What's up, Dan? How you?
Good. So, give us a status update. We haven't spoken to you in perhaps about a year or so. A status update on. I know you're based out of Philadelphia, or we were last time we spoke, but your status with Black Guns Matter and the progress that you're making to change the perception of black ownership of guns.
Right. Well, so for one, we've been around the country a bunch of times. We've been supportive. I think at the time when I came up there in Chicago, it was a really good cigar, by the way.
Thank you.
I think that we had a goal at that point of maybe $100,000. With that being the case, since then we've gotten to over $200,000, and I thought it was going to be over. But then everybody kept asking us again, you got to keep this going. So we raised the goal up to $1 million. I think we had maybe like $207,000 or something like that. So a good metric of if people still want or are interested in something is if they're paying for it. And a lot of people, across the country are paying it forward for other people. So, and what I mean by that is people saying, hey, I don't know exactly when you're coming to my town, but we need you to go back to Chicago. We need you to go, back to Compton, back to Detroit, to these some of these flyover states. So that's the status of where we are. And
just when you talk about go to these states, go to Chicago, and remind people what you do, what you did when you were last in Chicago.
Yeah, so the last time I was in Chicago, for a while we were there doing conflict resolution. We're working on these kits where we can give people a kit. This is what conflict looks like. This is what it's not, and then packaging that in the manner where even before you get to the Second Amendment or firearms, you're more well versed in dealing with and mitigating trauma based on conflict and recognizing what it is. So that's one thing. But when we were there, we did a few classes on, what does it mean to be if you participate in cannabis culture as well as a firearm owner? What does it mean if you're a felon in your regards to firearms? As well as we did those classes, and then we culminated that with a class dealing with all of those things: conflict resolution, firearm safety, political education. Because it doesn't make sense to know all of this stuff, and then you can have you're voting in a guy or a woman that's going to further infringe on your rights. So that's what we do at Black Guns Matter: conflict resolution, de-escalation, firearm safety and training, as well as political education. So all of these people across the nation are paying it forward for people in these high violence, high ignorance, very anti-freedom cities, blue cities for the most part, and states, to inform that voting group and make them vote differently. So that's in essence what we do.
What kind of pushback are you getting from? I'll give you. I don't want to stereotype, but I will in this. Liberal, Democrat, white reporters. What kind of protest? What kind of? Since I'm a journalist in Chicago, but I've never been accused of being a liberal. What kind of pushback are you getting from my brothers?
They don't really know. The best. Their attack on not approaching us is the pushback. Because they know that they can't use the same race card. So, for example, y'all white dudes, I know Dan's white.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm still white.
Well, I'm Greek.
Right.
We didn't become white until just
recently.
Jackie Kennedy got married to Aristotle
you're like darker.
and they made us white.
Cool. You're passing for black on certain moments. With that being the case, right?
Right.
They don't know how to approach what we're doing because, one, we're factually based. Two, the vast majority of the people that come to Black Guns Matter, not limited to, depending on the city that we're in, it's, people from urban areas. That might be black and brown people. With that being the case, they don't know how to approach it because they've been so used to using the race card, they can't deal with the fact that there's a person from the community. Our organization is in the communities, right, doing this work. So the best thing that they do is to try to ignore. And that's smart of them. Leave us alone. You know what I mean?
Right.
But when we get people calling that out, like, yo, there's a guy in your town. Hey, there's a guy, you should have him on your show. These even some of the, black on-air personalities, their leadership or their bosses are white liberals. So because of that, they give them very clear instructions to, take a hands-off approach. And I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? I'm still going to be on all of the, more right-leaning or freedom-based, places regardless. But I think they're afraid of me and my friends because they know what time it is. And number two, they don't want to look. They don't know how to really approach us. Our talking points don't sound like something that you'd see on right-wing media. You know what I mean? I'm not running around with a MAGA hat every day saying Donald Trump is the savior of the planet. I'm not doing that. We're objective. You know what I mean? And so because of that, they don't really know how to approach us, and it makes them have to think about their own bias. So if they're not brave, what they do is they be quiet, and that's fine. If you don't got nothing right to say or it's not fact-based, I believe you should shut up anyway. So I'm cool with them being quiet and us doing media. I just did 2 media shows on Fox Nation in New York a few days ago, so I'm perfectly fine with it. The truth is going true because I'm not trying to convince those white liberal media. I'm trying to inform the masses, the general public. And when you approach it the way that we do, dealing with conflict resolution, dealing with healing from trauma, dealing with mitigating violence, dealing with respect for freedoms, respect for the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, is in essence you'd almost have to be an idiot to argue against those points. So the general public are not fools. They may be misinformed, but once they got the right information, we come from good soil, so we grow some good stuff.
What's your reaction to the obsession in the wake of the El Paso and Dayton shootings with the white supremacist argument? It's mostly advanced by a bunch of white politicians, although, of course, you do have black and Latino candidates for president on the Dem side as well. But how do you receive the idea that white supremacy not only is being promoted from the occupant by the occupant of the White House, but that's the sort of existential threat to minority individuals in this country?
White supremacy is a myth. Any person, if we're talking about a white male, right? Because that's what they isolated to. They somehow seem to think like white women can't be like supremacists. But okay, let's go with the white male conversation.
Right.
That's a myth. No, if any white male thinks they're superior to other beings, they have a white inferiority complex. That's what that is. That's like a guy with a Napoleon complex with just a huge attitude and a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, we had a
you
mayor
have
like
an
that.
inferiority complex.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the whole right, that whole white guy's supremacist. That's something that you got to tell yourself to make yourself feel better. But in reality, across the world, across the entire globe, people of all different hues, ethnicities, cultural backgrounds have developed and pushed forward culture. That's just what it is. So this notion that, it's the white supremacists, it's like 8 Ku Klux Klan members. Like, that's it. Now, do people have biases? Yes. But I don't care. That's actually a certain portion of freedom. If you don't like the blacks, the Jews, whatever your thing is, you don't like the whites, I don't care. I don't care if you don't like me. I have guns. That's your issue if you don't like me. I'm gonna still be here and be fabulous. I'm still gonna be on at City Council at large. I'm still gonna work the angles. I'm still gonna inform the hood. Now, where we have a problem is when you allow your bias to try to violate my body or my stuff. Then, if my life is in imminent danger, I'm gonna shoot you. That's it. That is it. I have the right to exist on this land. So this concept that, it's the white supremacists, but at the same time, these same media talking heads and or politicians say things like, we need more gun control. Okay, so if the dude in charge is Hitler, right? And he's running things in white supremacy. And in urban areas, Philly's 60, 70% black and brown. So we should leave it up to the racists and the white supremacists to have the firearms and then do the right thing. That is a contradiction of the highest order.
Yeah.
If you a racist, awesome. Be racist. Do your thing. I don't care. When you try to attempt to violate my life, that's the whole concept of Black Guns Matter. I'm gonna show you how quick my life matters to me, and I'm gonna defend me and mine, and that's just what it is. So a lot of that's just media stuff. They try to get their ad revenues up, and God bless them. You got to get that Coca-Cola dollar. I feel you. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't really tripping, but it's a falsehood.
More like that Bloomberg dollar.
Media is the most effective devil in America. MEDIA, media. Church is coming soon. That's already copywritten. So guys, if you're hearing this, don't
right. I don't want you to charge us. Yeah.
There's nothing more biddable in politics than a white liberal reporter, because they're always guilty and they're on the intersectional highway and they don't know how to drive it, and they know if they'll get crashed and then they'll destroy everything.
Y'all ever heard of this thing called Operation Mockingbird?
No, I haven't.
No.
Operation Mockingbird was, first of all, even before we get to Mockingbird, President Obama signed something in a few years back where he said that it is, in essence, lawful for the mainstream media to use propaganda. That was not in existence. They took that restriction off the books during the Obama administration. It was lawful to use media to propagandize American citizens. Anyone that doesn't believe me, good. Don't believe me. Hop on DuckDuckGo and look it up for yourself. There's also a thing called Operation Mockingbird, where it was in essence they used journalists, white liberal journalists, to spread that propaganda. We have very little journalism still going on in America. You know what I mean?
No,
So with that being the case, I challenge.
I challenge you there, but I think you have a lot of pretenders and a lot of people that want to be stars, and they're playing to different groups. That's all.
Yeah,
They
want that Anderson Cooper check. I'm feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Hey, Maj, you talked about conflict resolution at the outset, and I wanted to focus on that too, because I make sure people understand there's sort of a holistic approach here to providing for your self-defense, but being, a peaceful pluralist too, as you are.
Right.
And so thinking about the shootings over the weekend, so the El Paso shooter's mom called police about her son having an AK, and the school and police were notified about the Dayton shooter back in 2010. So it seems to me, at least in part, what we have here, and we've seen this play out before, parents lose control of their kids, civil institutions fail, and the response from the political class is to punish people who play by the rules and raise kids who do. And that seems to be a real disconnect, too, but I'm not sure how much that's penetrating beyond, as you were talking about, the media din.
Well, it's because that's part of the tool. That's part of the process. We want to, I forget which politician it was that said, never let a tragedy go unused, or never let a tragedy go to waste, or something like that. My point there
that
is,
was wrong.
They'll defend the narratives. They'll switch the narrative to defend their position. They are very good at PR and lying. They're very good at, public relations, or what we call it in our camp, perception and reality. They'll shift your perception to create an alternative reality, alternative facts. With that being the case, this is all a part of it. The problem is, a lot of us on the freedom side, because we tend to go, well, they're allowed to believe whatever they want, we aren't loud enough about them being wrong. So because we don't want to, infringe, which if you're getting attacked, you should attack back. You should defend yourself. We've allowed this because we've allowed their PR machines to continue. So the tragedy happens. We're not talking about, the parents. I had a friend of mine, last week, his mother was murdered, stabbed to death by his brother. They have known for some time that the brother was saying things like, they out to get me, and like covering up the TV with a sheet. And a part of me, again, I'm going to be supportive of my friend and their family during this time. I'm going to be that. But at the same time, you should have help as a family involvement to get this person some help. Now, if you do that, if we intervene ourselves as a community, we don't have to wait on the government and then push a more anti-Fourth Amendment argument like red flag laws. We have to be involved. Then saying, hey, I'm having some issues. There's an example of another shooter that was stopped. His mom or his grandmom talked him down, into getting some help, going to getting some psychiatric evals, and that was a trauma mitigated. So my point there is, we have to do more as a community, and as much as cheesy as it sounds, it's the reality. Whether that's parenting, whether that's family, whether that's friends. When I have friends that have gone through hard divorces, and I get that thought like, man, maybe something's up, I'll say something as simple as, hey man, let me clean your rifles for you. And that's a way of me getting access to their rifles and talking to them, or even cleaning them with them. There are things in conflict resolution that we can do as a community to defend our freedoms, as well as mitigate these types of tragedies. It is our responsibility not to lean on the government to make another rule. The government just makes rules. They do not work. Direct intervention, not mandated by the state, is how we protect ourselves. No different than the $2.5 million on a light year annual defensive gun usages where somebody is responsible, and a lot of those do not end in fatalities. Somebody using a firearm to protect themselves and their loved ones from a bad person. These are things that we have to do. As Black